Have you ever noticed how much you bend over backwards for people who despise you? How much you smile out of fear? It's not kindness. It's not empathy. It's weakness in disguise. It's cowardice disguised as kindness. You say yes when you mean no. Give in when you want to resist. Forgive when you want to explode. And all this to be accepted by cowards, weak men, empty people, emotional manipulators who can't stand to see you strong. Nietzsche called this slave morals, an invisible poison that turns men into servants, that transforms power into guilt. You were taught to please, shutting up, to be good. But Nietzsche didn't want good men. He wanted dangerous men, conscious, relentless. This video is not for everyone. It's for those who are tired of asking for permission to exist, for those who have already realized that they are being tamed with every gesture of submission. The brutal truth? You are feeding those who weaken you, and Nietzsche said, stop pleasing cowards. Pleasing seems harmless, but it is a silent pact with its own annulment. Every time you say, it's okay when everything isn't okay, every time you remain silent in the face of injustice just to keep the peace, you die a little inside, and it feeds the parasite that lives off its surrender. Nietzsche did not see this docility as a virtue. He saw it as decadence. Like the symptom of a soul that has forgotten its own strength, you're not being kind, it is being conditioned, trained. Like a dog that learns that it will only be loved if it behaves the right way. But who established this right way? The weak ones, the cowards, those who are afraid of free, authentic, uncontrollable men. So they created a morality based on guilt, a morality that rewards obedience and punishes the will. You feel that, don't you? This internal discomfort, this swallowed anger, this constant feeling of betraying yourself, it's because you are. By trying to be good to everyone, you become nothing to yourself. And the world doesn't respect what is nothing. The world spits on the man who does not impose himself. Nietzsche wrote, "The man who has a why faces any how. But those who live pleasing others don't have a why. He's just afraid. Fear of rejection, fear of loneliness, afraid of discovering that perhaps no one really loves him. Except when he sacrifices himself. This is the price of pleasing. You disappear. You become a reflection of other people's desires. And in the end, when he begs for respect, he receives only silence. Cowards don't respect those who please. They explore. And as long as you continue to mold yourself to be accepted, you will continue to be used, discarded, and forgotten. If this is making sense, continue. Not every smile is innocent. Sometimes the sweetest smile hides the most perverse desire, control you, without you realizing it. Nietzsche saw this clearly. The morality of the weak does not attack head-on. It corrupts from within. It dresses in affection, disguises itself as compassion, and surrounds you like a slow poison. You've seen this. That colleague who always seems kind but reacts coldly when you set limits. That person who praises you, but only when you give in. That friend who disappears when you start saying what you really think. They don't want your strength. They want their weakness well made up. They want you to keep smiling, even when you're hurt. And when you dare to change, when you harden your gaze, when you raise your voice, when you make it clear that you will no longer be manipulated, those smiles evaporate. And in their place, the true face of cowardice appears, the indignation of the weak at the freedom of the strong. Nietzsche said that resentment is the weapon of the powerless, and the resentful person doesn't attack you with punches. He attacks you with sweet words, with emotional blackmail, with calculated silences. He wants you to be docile again. He wants you to apologize for daring to be yourself. This is true cowardice, not to run away from the battle, but to make the other guilty of existing with intensity. They smile, but it's a smile that hides fear, fear of losing control over yourself. And what do? You feel guilt, you withdraw, you think, maybe I overdid it, maybe I was too harsh. And it folds again. He smiles again too. But inside, he is poisoning himself. You're betraying yourself once again. You need to understand. The manipulator's smile is not a gesture of peace. It's a subtle reminder that you will only be loved while you are little. Breaking away from this takes courage. It requires enduring the discomfort of conflict. It requires enduring the crooked look, the criticism, the distancing. But Nietzsche already said, "The snake that cannot shed its skin dies." If you don't abandon this false comfort, you will be just another puppet, polite, smiling, and deeply unhappy. If you've ever felt this kind of disguised manipulation, you know what I'm talking about. And maybe it's time to stop smiling and start standing up. Submission is not virtue, but we were taught that it is. From an early age, you have been conditioned to believe that the man who bows his head is wise, that the man who forgives everything is evolved, that the man who tolerates humiliation is above average. Lies, dangerous lies, disguised as moral teaching. Nietzsche called this revaluation of values, a process in which the weak, resentful, reversed everything that is noble and called it goodness. Strength became arrogance, courage turned into rudeness, authenticity became selfishness, and submission became a virtue. But this is just camouflage, because behind this holy image of humility, there is the fear of being hated, fear of being rejected, fear of being who you really are, with all your intensity, fury, desire, and power. You know that. You feel it. Every time you say, "let it go," when something hurts you deeply. Each time he tries to understand the other while swallowing his own pain. Every time you say, "I don't want conflict," but inside you there is a trapped scream, a scream of anger, of injustice, of frustration. You think you are being virtuous, but it's just fading away. Nietzsche called this slave morals, an ethic created by those who had no power and needed to transform impotence into quality. And the worst? You have convinced yourself that this is spiritual evolution, that accepting everything in silence is nobility, that suffering in silence is wisdom. No. This is programming. It is self-effacing. Being good is not the same as being submissive, and being fair does not require being weak. But society doesn't want fair men, want trained men, men who never fight back, men who live in fear of hurting other people's feelings, even though they are crushed every day. Submissive virtue is the most sophisticated current. You carry it on your chest with pride, without realizing that it is the reason for your anguish. Because deep down you know your soul was not born to please. It was born to expand, to conquer, to assert one's own existence with brutal intensity. And everything that asks you to diminish yourself in the name of virtue, it is not virtue, it's castration. Nietzsche wrote, "Everything that is deep loves the mask." And that mask of submission looks beautiful, but it is hiding an abyss. If this touched you, keep going. You can deny it. You may even be revolted by this idea. But a part of you takes pleasure in being dominated. Yes, nice to meet you. A strange relief, a perverse security that comes when you no longer need to decide, when someone dictates the rules, when someone tells you who you should be. Nietzsche did not see this as an accident. He saw there a deep trace of the decadent soul, a surrender disguised as comfort, an unhealthy desire to surrender because sustaining freedom is heavy, because being free requires strength. Being free requires responsibility. Being free requires enduring the anguish of being you, with no one to blame. And for many, this is unbearable. So they prefer to be dominated. They prefer to cling to rules, doctrines, standards, suffocating relationships, Because there, even though they are oppressed, they feel a type of order. They feel like they belong. They feel they are safe. But this security comes at a price, and the price is your soul. Nietzsche said that modern man exchanged greatness for comfort. He exchanged nobility for obedience. And deep down, he likes it, likes to be guided, likes to ask permission. He likes to diminish himself, because then he will never be responsible for his own failure. It's easier to be a victim, easier to say, I did this because I was told to, easier to blame society, parents, ex, God. The dark pleasure of domination comes from there. It's the pleasure of not having to carry the weight of being, the pleasure of living as a shadow, like a spectrum, as a servant. But this pleasure is degenerate. It's a pleasure that slowly poisons you. It turns you into a slave, smiling. And the dominator knows this. He smells your delivery. It tests your limits. It provokes you. He manipulates you, and you obey. You say you are being understanding, but you're addicted to the feeling of being led. Because you haven't learned how to drive yourself yet. Nietzsche would say, you have not yet awakened to the will to power, the brute force that breaks domination, the tragic affirmation of existence itself, the cry of the spirit that refuses to crawl. Until that happens, you will continue to prefer the leash to solitude, control to freedom, the comfort of slavery to the pain of autonomy. But one day, this pain will reach you, and then, perhaps, it will be too late. Or maybe right now you're starting to feel it. If something inside you is rebelling, don't run away. This revolt is the first sign of life. Every man carries a fury within him, a latent, primitive, creative force that pulses, burns, bites. Nietzsche called it will to power, the will to power. But you suppressed it because they said she was dangerous. They said it was ego, that it was ugly, which was wrong. They said that wanting too much was a sin, that imposing himself was aggressive, that wanting to dominate your own life was arrogance. And you believed. He learned to silence his power. He learned to contain himself, hiding anger, softening your voice, asking permission to even exist. But the will to power does not die. She hides. She gets sick, and that's when the symptoms begin. The constant anxiety, the feeling of emptiness, the silent envy of those who live without fear, the existential boredom that no modern pleasure can fill. You are not sick. You are caged. You are paying the price for not becoming who you really are. And the world around you, mediocre, domesticated, automated, applauds you for it. See how polite he is. See how humble he is. See how he tries to please. Yes. See how he is dying inside. Nietzsche said, man is something that must be overcome. But you can't even get over your guilt. And it is this guilt that keeps his will to power chained. She makes you apologize for thinking out loud. It makes you hesitate before saying no. It makes you feel ashamed of your noblest impulse, the impulse to live with brutal intensity. The will to power is not about controlling others. It's about not being controlled anymore. It's about taking ownership of your own soul and saying, this is me, with all that it carries: light, shadow, fury, desire, contradiction. It's about stopping being a reaction and becoming a creation, no longer someone who responds, but someone who decides. That creates its own values, who builds his own path, even if it condemns him to loneliness. Because yes, the price of authenticity is exclusion, but the price of repression is death in life. And that's what you're experiencing. A slow, silent, smiling death. Nietzsche didn't come to comfort you. He came to tear your skin, rip off your mask, and remind you that there is a sleeping God inside. But this God is bound by chains that you yourself accepted. Maybe you're feeling right now. An anger, a discomfort, a desire to break everything. That is good. This is the will to power waking up. If you have the courage, follow. Do you think the weak are harmless? That they are sensitive, empathetic, just victims of the world? Do you think weakness is synonymous with purity? Nietzsche would spit on that, because the weak are not pure, the weak are vindictive. He can't win by force, so he wins by manipulation. He cannot dominate with power, so he dominates with guilt. He can't impose himself, so he slowly undermines the souls of those who can. This is the cruelty of the weak. They cry, but with strategy. They suffer, but with intention. They act fragile, so you let your guard down, and when you lower it, they sink their teeth into it. Not in your body, but in your psyche. They make you doubt yourself. They make you apologize for existing. They make you feel guilty for being stronger, more lucid, more free. This is the inversion of values. He who could build, lead, protect is shamed, while the one who doesn't even have the courage to look in the mirror is sanctified. Nietzsche said, when the resentful cannot rise, he lowers himself. He gets dirty. He poisons. And the worst, he convinces you that this is justice. It convinces you that you are arrogant for not accepting being diminished, that you are insensitive for refusing to carry weights that are not yours. He makes you feel bad for being free and good, for being an accomplice to his own arrest. This is not nobility, this is control. This is the theater of the weak, and you, without realizing it, are in the lead role. Haven't you noticed yet? The weak don't want equality. He wants everyone to kneel with him. He wants no one to shine brighter than him. He wants your light to bother you so much that you turn it off yourself. Mas Nietzsche sabia, true nobility does not bow. She provokes. She insults. It exposes the resentment of those who crawl, and that's why the weak hate the strong, not out of malice, but because in front of them they feel naked. Before them they realize what could have been, and they never will be. Then they attack, smiling, crying, playing victims, but they attack. And if you don't wake up, you will be destroyed, with affection, with sweet words, with compliments that have poison. This is the cruelty of the weak. They don't kill you. They convince you to kill yourself inside. If you're feeling anger rising, you're on the right path. You don't need to take revenge. You don't need to prove anything. No need to shout. You just need to disappear from the minds of those who dominated you. Nietzsche did not talk about rebelling with fury. He spoke of transvaluates. Break up with everything, elevate so much to the point of becoming incomprehensible, inaccessible. You've spent your whole life being too approachable, emotionally accessible, energetically accessible, accessible to the judgment of the weak, to the touch of manipulators, to the desire of those who wanted to bend you. You left yourself open because you wanted to be loved. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be chosen, but now you understand, the ones that suck you the most are the ones that will never see you. They will never love you. They will never respect you. Nietzsche said, the path to greatness passes through solitude, for silence, for refusal, and the rebirth begins there. When you stop responding, when you become indescribable, when you don't explain yourself, it is not justified. Don't bow. You stop being a man, and it becomes a force, a presence that does not need anyone's approval, an existence that makes no apologies for existing. And at that moment, something strange happens. The world begins to respect you. Manipulators withdraw. The weak are silent. The vampires disappear. Because they feel you are no longer available. You are no longer food. You are no longer accessible. You are reborn. I won't eat one more. But as what Nietzsche would call Superman, the man who creates his own values. That doesn't imitate. That doesn't obey, which doesn't please. The man who, in the face of decadence, laughs, and in the face of chaos, he states, I am. You no longer need permission. You no longer need to be understood. You need to be true, total, unshakable, impossible to be manipulated. This is the liberation that Nietzsche offers. Brutal, lonely, real. If you understand, then you are not the same as when this video started. You no longer need to please. You no longer need to beg for love. You no longer need to mutilate yourself emotionally to be accepted by those who are not even worth your silence. The time of being small is over. Nietzsche never promised peace. He promised lucidity. He promised the fire that purifies and destroys everything that is not you. Now you know. You know who the weak are. You know what they do. You know how they bend you. Know what society expects of you. May you be silent. May you obey. May you keep smiling as you dissolve. But that game is over. You are no longer the prey. You're not the good boy anymore. You are no longer the nice man. You are the one who saw the truth. And whoever sees it can never return. If this touched you, write in the comments, "I refuse to be controlled." Show that you are awake. Show that you are reborn, inaccessible. And if you're ready to continue this breakout, the next video is essential. Click now. Your liberation started here.